Going on, everyone? Welcome into another edition of the 415ers podcast. As always, on the Odyssey Sports Podcast Network. Please download the app. Also, check us out on YouTube on the 95.7 The Game channel. That is Marc Grandi. I'm Evan Giddings. Mark, it's going to be a Trey Lance-centric episode due to Albert Breer, who had some interesting remarks on the Colin Cowherd show, The Herd. We also got some updates on training camp. But before we get into it, what's up, my man? How are you?
I'm doing well. Last episode was very quarterback heavy as well. Some of it because of some rumors about some non-49ers quarterbacks. This one is more about the current 49er quarterbacks. We had a bit of time where there wasn't a lot of quarterback talk, where it seemed kind of normal and straightforward, at least as straightforward as this position can be for the 49ers. It was a nice change of pace, but we're right back to talking about the San Francisco 49ers quarterbacks. I'm looking forward to that. It can be a lot of times, but it should be fun. I'm looking forward to the episode. Overall, though, Evan, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. Yeah, a little bit later in the week. It's a bit foggy here in the Bay Area, so some of that late June gloom
I love
has
it.
Been dropping down to the Bay. Yeah, see, that's not why a lot of people move to California, Mark. They come here for the sun. And as much as love being from here and grew up around this kind of fog, I don't know if they still call it Carl, RIPK fog, but from living around the country at this time of the year, it is supposed to be hot, it is supposed to be sunny, and it is supposed to be temperate, all of which it is not right now in the Bay Area. So outside of that, I'm doing pretty good.
Well, I don't like to have to go outside and walk 2 city blocks and I'm drenched in sweat. So I am perfectly fine with it being 65, 70 degrees, a little bit of overcast. That is perfect for me. I want to be outside. I want to enjoy being outside. I don't want it to be raining and gross, but I also don't want it to feel like hell anytime I step outside.
Yeah, I personally just don't enjoy being cold inside my poorly insulated home, but that's just me. What we're going to talk about today, Mark, has to do with Albert Breer, who was on The Herd earlier this week on FS1, Colin Cowherd's radio show, TV show, simulcast, and specifically was asked about the quarterbacks. And really, it all revolves around the three guys we've talked about this offseason: Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold. And that's because anytime there's a question about the 49ers, that's the first place anyone starts. And Albert Breer had some interesting comments about Trey Lance and if he had been given ample opportunity, essentially. And this is kind of what he had to say.
Brock Purdy were unable to take the first snap of training camp, and that's certainly a possibility. He's on a track to play week 1, but they're still building the strength in his arm back up. I think Sam Darnold might take the first snap of training camp. Now, it doesn't mean Trey Lance can't come back and work his way forward, but I think that they feel like they've already given this guy a lot of chances.
Yeah.
And, here's the thing about it, Colin, right? The kid needs to play, and this is sort of the conundrum they're in. He just hasn't played a lot of football, period, since high school. He played 1 full year in college. The COVID year basically canceled his 3rd year in college, right? He's redshirted as a freshman. And then he goes into the pros and he's redshirted his rookie year. So we're talking about now a 5-year period, if you include last year when he was hurt, where he's only really played 1 full season of football. So he needs to see snaps.
Okay, yeah, that was the full quote from Albert Breer. And yeah, essentially is just saying they feel like they have given Trey a lot of chances to prove that he deserves more, but they also don't have because of the injuries, just because of the last couple of years, he hasn't got to play a lot of football. And I don't know, Mark. It kind of seemed like a roundabout way of saying that Trey Lance is not going to be the number 2 quarterback and Sam Darnold's going to be the guy.
That's what it seems like. It also kind of seems a little like what you talked about maybe last week when talking about kind of the nature of Darnold v. Lance. If there was a fill-in, a mop-up start, Purdy goes down with a minor ankle tweak and someone gets a snap, it might be Darnold as opposed to Lance, because in a situation like that, you might trust the experience. Just because it's simply more than Lance, you might expect Darnold to be able to stay afloat a little bit better than Trey Lance. But one thing that sticks out to me from this comment, and it's nothing against Albert Breer. Obviously, there's something that he's hearing that's making him say this. He says that the 49ers feel like, at least, again, according to Albert Breer, that the 49ers have given Trey Lance, plenty of opportunity already, plenty of chances. And then in the next breath, he explains how Lance simply hasn't played enough over the last, 5 years. His college year at North Dakota State, where he was incredible, and that was his last full year. And then COVID happened, and then his redshirt freshman year in the NFL, his redshirt rookie year. And then, of course, last year where he was going to be the starter and then got hurt. 5 years, but really only 1 year as a full-time starter. I don't know how you can have those two things existing at the same time. On one hand, saying and thinking, and this is, again, what Albert Breer says the 49ers think. I don't know how you can think that Trey Lance has been given enough opportunities to prove himself and therefore doesn't deserve another opportunity right now, at least given the roster the 49ers have. And then on the other hand, also say he just needs to play. He hasn't been given enough opportunity to play it. Those are two diametrically opposed statements. Like, you cannot have two things be more different from each other. So I don't know how you can possibly believe both of those things. In my mind, there's no way in hell that Trey Lance has been given enough opportunities for anyone to know if he's legitimate, if he's legitimately a good quarterback in this league or not. I certainly have no clue. Now, that doesn't mean that he automatically deserves chances, because Brock Purdy's in this quarterback room, and he's shown, well, at least more than Trey Lance has. So I'm not saying that Trey Lance deserves more opportunity, but for Albert Breer to say that he thinks the 49ers think that they've given Trey Lance enough opportunity already, I could not disagree more. That seems like an outlandish statement to me. The guy started 4 games. One of them, he didn't even get out of the first quarter, essentially, because of a broken ankle. Another one was a monsoon game, and the 2 other games were spot starts his rookie season, where he wasn't really asked to do all that much. This seems wild to me.
I actually I think I get what he's saying. And yes, he does talk himself into a corner like you just mentioned. But I think what he's trying to say, the a lot of chances part to me is more about the 49ers, unfortunately, like they just haven't been able to give him the games to play because either he hasn't been in a spot to earn them at the beginning of his career, which isn't necessarily unexpected, but that as soon as you come in and then you do get a chance to start, and we'll talk about in a minute where Albert Breer believed that last season is very much different than this one, he gets hurt. So if Trey Lance has had, let's see, 30 more potential starts, right? Because he's gotten 4.
Yeah.
So 15 of those are essentially cut due to injury, or 15.75, as you put it, because he only played a quarter of the second game of the season. So those are gone. So he didn't have a chance to play it all last year. I can make an argument that after week 7, his first start in the NFL, yeah, Kyle Shanahan ran him into the ground. He ran him 16 times. But that's not what Albert Breer is arguing. He's arguing that he had chances. Trey Lance came out of that game with a sprained knee. He came out of training camp with a broken finger. Like, there are things that have happened to Trey Lance that have prevented him from getting a lot more chances. And I think what he's trying to say is that the injuries have gotten in the way more so than the training staff, or pardon me, the coaching staff of the opportunities for Trey Lance. At least that's what I hear, even though it does sound kind of backwards.
Yeah, maybe it's more of a timeline thing. And you're right, this is something that we'll touch on in a little bit, where the 49ers are, they're trying to move this thing along. They're trying to push it along because they know the state of their roster, and because they have, given Lance these chances in the past, although I would argue, again, not that many chances, but always there has always been a roadblock that's been tough for them to clear and get around. And at this point, there just isn't a ton of time left for them to kind of dilly-dally around and try to take another chance. So I understand it in that sense. But if you're looking just purely from a football ability standpoint, I don't know how you could possibly say this guy has been given enough chances. And again, I'm not saying that he deserves more chances right now. If the 49ers say, Brock Purdy got in after Jimmy Garoppolo went down last year and he flamed out, as you would expect a 7th-round rookie quarterback to do. He was not long for this league. He struggled, whatever the case may be, and we never hear from him again. And it was, Trey Lance now only against Sam Darnold. I would 100% argue that the Niners need to give Trey Lance every possible opportunity to become the next franchise quarterback. But because of the situation that they have in front of them, because of who they have at quarterback, someone who they clearly very much believe in Brock Purdy, I'm not going to sit here and say that Trey Lance automatically deserves another chance, more opportunity, simply because of where he was drafted and all that. That's not how you make decisions in professional sports. You make decisions based on what you think will win you the most games, what will make you successful on the football field, on the basketball court, on the baseball diamond, whatever the situation is. And as of right now, it seems pretty clear the 49ers feel that Brock Purdy gives them the best chance to do those things. So I'm not arguing for giving him more chances. I just can't say I agree from a football player perspective that he's been given enough chances to prove himself, although I do understand that the 49ers are trying to work a tight ship here, and they kind of have a timeline to keep.
Well, it's interesting because a common phrase that we've used on this podcast, and that has also been started by the 49ers, ready to take off, has been used before in reference to Trey Lance. And I apologize, it wasn't after week 7 of 2021, it was after week 5. And then the following week was a bye week. Jimmy G returned in his own monsoon game against Indianapolis, got shellacked, and then they started their run. But Trey Lance was unavailable. So in my mind, like I do think ideally, Mark, before last season, before he got hurt, they were attempting to give him a lot of chances. But each and every time it felt like either he made progress or was ready to be given even more in-game opportunity, he got hurt. And so to me, that fault is not at the coaching staff's decision to not play him. If anything, it should be I have an issue with the game plan. I have an issue with him running 16 times in his first NFL start. I have an issue with him looking more like a running quarterback than a dual threat or even a pass first quarterback. Those are the things I have issue with the 49ers. But to say that they didn't give him chances, I think is a little oversimplified. Now that maybe they didn't give him the right opportunity. You didn't see what you wanted to see from him because he wasn't passing as much or, in certain packages. I'm not exactly sure how they used him. It didn't look the same way they used Brock Purdy immediately when he came in for an injured Jimmy Garoppolo. And that's where I guess there's kind of a mix up in definition of what the chances are. But I do get that, look, like 4 starts in 2 seasons isn't a whole lot, but he also, due to his own misfortune, hasn't been able to earn those more chances.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get where you're coming from. I just there's just a big part of me nagging in the back of my mind, and we've had this conversation in the past, and I'm sure we're going to continue as training camp gets underway in less than a month. July 15th, we'll talk more about that later, is when rookies are reporting for 49ers training camp, or July 18th, not the 15th. That's coming up in less than a month. There's just something nagging in the back of my head going, I can't possibly believe that the 49ers know everything they possibly need to about Trey Lance from practice and the 4 starts that he's had. There's just no way that's a big of enough sample size. Maybe they feel extremely confident and they feel like not giving him another legitimate chance, because you're right. He was given a legitimate chance last season. It's just unfortunate he got hurt. I feel uncomfortable blaming it on any individual or any group of people. I'm not saying that Kyle Shanahan is to blame straight up for Trey Lance's injury. It's certainly not Trey Lance's fault either. It's just what happens in football. It's an unfortunate situation. I don't feel comfortable giving up or moving on or just flat out saying Trey Lance can't play football until I see him play more football in actual NFL games during the regular season. Maybe they feel differently, but for that reason, I can't say he's been given enough chances because we simply haven't reached a conclusion yet. You've run tests, but guess what? There's been issues with your setup of your experiments. You haven't been able to get the results just yet. So what do? You adjust, you run the experiment again. Now I know this is a different situation again because they have someone else they can play at quarterback in Brock Purdy, but we haven't come to the conclusion yet. At least I don't feel comfortable saying a conclusion, reaching a conclusion, because I don't think there's enough evidence one way or the other. That's just where I sit. I understand the other side. They have tried their best to give him chances, but injuries have happened. It happens. It's football, but I just don't feel comfortable saying that that's enough for me to believe that he's not a good quarterback.